if you do a thought experiment, and this has been, if you do a thought experiment and first off, consider that in any company, the resulting profits comes from only three variables.
Okay.
It's the total cost,
Mm-hmm.
it's the total sales volume, and it's the price of what you're selling. Now, if the thought experiment here is, what if you change any of these three variables 1%?
Okay.
So if your sales volume goes up with 1%, for the average company, profits goes up with 3.5%. That's of course because, okay, revenue goes up, but so does cost, right? If you can lower your cost with 1%, profitability goes up for the average company with 5.5%. But if you can increase your price with 1% or decrease your discounting with 1%, profitability goes up 11.3% for the average company.
So welcome to the Professional Rule Breaker Show, and I have an amazing guest for you today. He is known as the Price Whisperer. He teaches executives how to grow their company using pricing as a centerpiece of their business strategy, and he's a sought-after speaker, and he routinely gets quoted in Financial and Business Times. And he has a new book out, and it's called The Price Whisperer, a holistic approach to pricing power. So I want to really welcome Per Sjorfors to the show.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and it's a pleasure to be on the show. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I hope it's going to be entertaining and also informative for the audience.
Oh, absolutely. I'm actually really looking forward to this because you have such a unique market, and there's not a lot of people out there that really specialize in pricing. I don't even know if I've ever met anyone that specializes in pricing. So I want to ask you, how on earth did you become a thought leader in pricing?
Well, first off, let me mention the Price Whisperer. I was called the Price Whisperer so many times that eventually I decided to adopt the moniker, and with a weird name like mine, why not? But the story here is that I ran a couple of companies in Europe before I moved here to the States, and I've been running a few companies here as well. And we did experiments with pricing, and some of those experiments were very successful, meaning like next quarter revenues are up 25-30% or so.
Wow.
And others were complete duds. And what I had learned in business school about pricing was so academic and theoretical that it was really useless information. It didn't help us to understand why some experiments worked and others didn't. So 15 years ago, I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun. So it was time to set up my own shop, and I took that interest in pricing and developed a process that would, well, I wouldn't say would, that makes every pricing experiment a success.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
We're definitely going to dive into that because I want to know. So what makes pricing a success versus like what you said that, when you first started, some things worked, some things didn't. So what makes it a success?
The process I developed is based on doing willingness to pay research. So this is online polling into a company's marketplace, and through a whole series of questions that we present, we can, and this is all about measuring price versus value.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And how a company's market perceives the value that the company delivered to the market. And when you have that measurement, that again can be done with great accuracy, you can set your price to match the value.
Okay.
And when you set the price to match the value, your revenues are going to soar, right?
Mhm. Right.
And
What about the customer satisfaction as well? Do you think that there's more customer satisfaction because they feel that the value matches the pricing?
absolutely. It's very interesting. There is something. I lean on or stand on the shoulders of three Nobel Prize winners, right? And what we've done is that we've taken their sort of academic research in a field called behavioral economics, which is
Okay.
all about how we make purchase decisions. And we've taken their academic research and turned it into something that can be used practically. And within that field, there is something called expectation bias. And that expectation bias means that it means two things. First off, if you're about to buy something and you're being presented with a price for whatever you're about to buy, and that price is lower than your expectation of the price, everybody, you, me, your customers, everybody is going to say, well, I kind of want to buy this, but at this low price, it can't be any good, so I won't, right?
Right. Right.
And so that's one portion of expectation bias, which is, well, we have many customers where we say, increase your pricing, and they see an increase in sales volume. The other portion of expectation bias is that if you bought something that you thought was pretty expensive, your customer satisfaction increases. And there's been multiple research projects that have found that a 5-cent aspirin to cure your headache is not very effective, whereas a 50-cent aspirin is, right? Same drug is more, and
It's almost it's not the mindset, a placebo effect.
yeah,
Maybe
it's a
that's what I'm
placebo
trying to
effect.
say.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay.
So price do affect customer satisfaction. You know,
Wow.
you expect a certain outcome, and therefore it's more likely that you get that certain outcome.
Okay.
You
What
know.
about, like, for example, like I've seen things that are just crazy expensive,
Mm-hmm.
like a drink that has, I think it had gold in it, like a
Uh-huh.
flake of gold or had something small in there, and it was several $1,000s
Mm-hmm.
for this particular drink.
Mm-hmm.
Does that do anything? I mean, because when I look at that, I think, well, that's crazy. I personally am not going to buy a drink for few $1,000s. What does that do, I guess, to the brand if you're I would say overpriced, or is it just considered great marketing?
It's great marketing.
Yeah.
There's something called, some people call this the decoy effect. I like to call it price anchoring. And what it means is that in pricing best practice, when you present a price to a customer, and obviously you have to have a price to get the deal, right?
Right.
Even if it's a price that comes in a RFP response or whatever.
Right.
But what you want is, as we read up, top to bottom, left to right, we want to make sure that the first thing that the prospective customer read is a high price, right?
Okay.
Because that sets a reference, meaning that consecutive prices that they may read are lower and therefore appear more affordable.
Okay.
And I tell you that the most brilliant use of the price anchoring I've ever seen was when Apple came out with the watch. This was
Oh,
what, 6 years ago,
the
7 years ago,
one
something
that
like that.
it was made out of, it might have been made out of gold, or it was just
Yes,
crazy expensive.
the
Yes.
normal watch was $349,
Hmm.
and then they had a version where the case was made out of 24 karat gold for 17,000, right? And the all the journalists that wrote about this introduction they talked about the audacity of Apple having the same electronics at $349 and at $17,000. Right. But the whole point was to make that $349 appear more and more affordable, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was great marketing because I actually went to the Apple store to see it. So I know that exact example because they
Did they
actually
have
had one. And it looked the same for the most part. It was just gold in color. I mean,
they don't have it anymore. And I don't think they sold many. I think they probably sold a few because there are always people who say, I want to have the best. I want to have the most expensive, right? There are not many of them, but there are some. And I mean, we obviously follow that rule in my company too, you know, we sell through custom proposals and when we present something, we always start with the most expensive option, right? And typically you have a good, better, best. That should be best, good, best, better, good, right?
Right.
But I have some customers who says, yeah, we want the most expensive options, the most expensive version of your service, and we want all the options.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Only because they're the kind of customer that always want the best, you know?
Right. They want the full package. They want everything.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
So are you telling me that it's important whether or not you have, because I just think about with Apple, that was a high ticket offer is what they had. So should everyone have a high ticket offer, whether they sell it or they don't?
Absolutely. A friend of mine is own one of the a fairly upmarket Thai restaurant here in the Los Angeles area, and I helped him with his menu. The menu is a price list, if you think about it. And I said, whatever you can figure out, put something really expensive in your top left corner of your menu, right? And we talked back and forth a little bit, and he said, yeah, there's some very exclusive kind of fish you can get. It's not the pomfret, it's something different. And I put that up in the corner, and I make it a family meal, and it's several $100, right? And it includes beer or wine, and again, it's really expensive. And he said we had this conversation because he wanted to increase his prices. So I said, okay, so you put that up in the corner, and then you can increase your price with whatever the 20 or 25% he wanted to increase,
Right.
And I followed up with him a couple of months after he had done that change, and he said, it just works spectacular. we at higher prices, our business, our sales volume have increased, right?
Wow.
And he was already pretty expensive for being a Thai restaurant.
Right. Wow.
So it really works every time.
It works. That's got my mind going. Now, let me ask you something else, because you kind of almost alluded your friend at the Thai restaurant. It sounded like he was doing this. What are your thoughts about bundling? So like in the case of your friend at the Thai restaurant, it came with, his high priced, meal came with beer or wine or whatever, and who knows, maybe dessert. What's your feeling for businesses to bundle, maybe have a high price, but then add all these things in there to does it lessen the blow, I guess? I don't know. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, bundling and unbundling are important things for pricing. Now, there's something that is very important to realize when it comes to bundling.
Okay.
And that is that people buy a bundle because of convenience, not necessary to get a lower price.
Okay.
And I've actually done I've done nerd like me, I bought one of these gift baskets that they have for Christmas and stuff like that, and I looked
Right.
at the prices of the individual items, right? And the gift basket was about 35% more expensive than should I gone and bought all the items themselves, right?
Oh, right.
Because of convenience,
Hmm.
right?
They did the work for you. They put it together for
Exactly,
you.
yeah. And I'm happy to pay for the convenience. I mean, I wouldn't buy a basket and try to arrange something and wrap it in some kind of this sort of, what do you call it, this
Cellophane or whatever that
cellophane.
is.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. um and neither would my wife, obviously. But so I'm willing to pay extra to get the convenience, and that is something that almost every company forgets. They say,
Mm,
I do a bundle to lower my price. Wrong. Do a bundle because it allows convenience to the buyer, and don't lower the price and maybe charge a little extra for it.
yes.
You
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
Now, when it comes to unbundling, there is that's also very important. And let me let me illustrate this by a story, right?
Okay.
Um, Imagine that you have a company who wants to upgrade their data center infrastructure, right? And they need more of these data switches. So you have the sales guy for the the switch manufacturer or reseller or whatever it is, talking to the purchaser of the purchase agent of the company.
Right.
And the purchase agents, of course, saying that we need to have this price, whatever the price is, right?
Right.
Which is too low for the vendor, right?
Right.
So, but imagine if the seller here can say, okay, I can give you the price, but then you have to use your own cables.
Hmm.
Okay. So suddenly there's a win-win, right? The buyer gets the price that they need. The
Hmm.
seller gets the business. They have a lower cost, right? Because they don't have the cables.
Right.
So yes, there may be lesser, the dollar value will be lesser, but maybe the margin may even be higher, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so it's a win-win, but the real sales sales win is when the purchase agent goes back to his or her boss and
Hmm.
say, we got the price we wanted, and we can even use our own cables.
That's right. That's
But
right.
there's one thing here too, very important thing. This means that in order for the seller to deliver this, there must be two SKUs, right? To a SKU number, one with and one without cable for the same switch.
Right.
Otherwise, they can't deliver it.
Hmm.
And of course, never, ever should the buyer see the price without cables.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. No, it's what you're doing is you're structuring the deal. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was a perfect example of how to structure a deal,
Mm-hmm.
in which it's win-win,
Mm-hmm.
which for me as a sales expert, that's my number one. It
Mm-hmm.
always has to be a win-win, because if I win and you lose, that's bad. You
Yeah,
won't be my
that's no
customer for
good.
long. Or if it's the other way around, I may not be in business
Mm-hmm.
as well. So it's always good to structure the win-win. But what was interesting is that so you structure that when they're thinking they get what they said, what they
Mm-hmm.
need, right? And they're also getting that purchase agent's also getting what he wants.
Yeah,
He wants to
exactly.
be able to go out to his boss and say, "Hey, look at all the great stuff that I've done."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
addressing the want, you're addressing the need and the want, and giving this really great thing, all by working with the pricing,
Mm-hmm.
which is
I
a
have
really
another story for you, which is
different angle.
also
Yes, I'd love to
uh,
hear it.
the it's a friend of mine who has they're doing these ready-made drinks that are already mixed in pouches,
Mm-hmm.
and this is typically fairly low quality stuff, the way you buy it in the store for a couple of bucks or so.
Mm-hmm.
This particular product is high quality. Now, I don't know what it means to be high quality, but that's sort of irrelevant. The first time my friend sold this to Ralph's, which is one of the grocery chains here in Southern California, he was selling at a loss. He was negotiated down by the buyer that just to get a foot in the door, he was selling at a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Then we did that willingness to pay research, and we could tell him what the consumer were actually willing to pay for the quality aspect of that drink, which was like $5 instead of $1.99. And so when he got back to get the next order, met the same purchase agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now he had hard data on what consumers are willing to pay, right?
Right.
So he can say, this is going to retail for $4.99 or $4.95, right?
Right.
Means that you, Mr. Retailer, are going to make more money. Means that I'm going to make money on this. Means that we're going to satisfy a market vertical that is not satisfied in other ways, right? And that became also a win-win-win, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Consumers win because they got the product.
Right.
The retailer wins because they make more money, and the vendor wins because they also make money here, right?
Absolutely. That's
and it's all because he had hard data.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So let's talk about this hard data. I'm really curious about trying to find out what you term the willingness to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a series of questions that you have put together in which does it address the cost? Or do you actually give a price, or do you say, what would you be willing to pay for this?
No, you can't say what you can't say how much are you willing to pay.
Okay.
You have to you have, through a series of questions, it's about understanding how the buyer sees the monetized value of a particular product, and that monetized value also means that one can ask what is just like we said, when we have this expectation bias. So if a price is too low, you won't buy it, and you ask that,
Right.
And what is the value that you really what is the monetized value that you really see with this product if you stretch your budget, and what is the value that is not enough, so you won't buy it, because you don't have the funds, or you don't have the budget if it's B2B. So through that, and we get really accurate data.
Mm-hmm.
A week ago, Wednesday, a week ago, I spoke to the CEO of a customer. They're selling a membership, and they implemented our recommendations in October, I think it was. And what he told me is that revenues are up 65%.
Wow.
And
That's huge.
and he said, we didn't lose any customers. There were a few that complained, but we didn't lose any.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That
shows the power of pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the power of having hard data for your pricing decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Most companies, most companies, they spend so little time on pricing. They'd spent oodles of resources on marketing and sales and cost control and stuff like that. And pricing is often an afterthought.
It really should
But
be included in the strategy, don't you think?
absolutely. I mean, just to give you another, for my book, I reached out to a bunch of prior customers and I said, here, can you say something nice about my book? And I sent them a review copy and stuff like that. And
Right.
One guy came back and he said, well, you helped us grow our business from 100 million to way over 1 billion.
That is, I mean,
and that is because what we taught them was to make pricing an integral part of their business strategy.
mm-hmm.
And when you do, many small decisions are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really think about it, and I have something that I call the 1%.
I was actually just about ready to ask you about the 1% challenge. I
The
had seen
1%
something
challenge,
about that.
yeah.
Yes.
If you do a thought experiment, and this has been, if you do a thought experiment, and first off, consider that in any company, the resulting profits comes from only 3 variables.
Okay.
It's the total cost,
mm-hmm.
it's the total sales volume, and it's the price of what you're selling. Now, if the thought experiment here is, what if you change any of these 3 variables 1%?
Okay.
So if your sales volume goes up with 1%, for the average company, profits goes up with 3.5%. That's of course because, okay, revenue goes up, but so does cost, right? If you can lower your cost with 1%, profitability goes up for the average company with 5.5%. But if you can increase your price with 1% or decrease your discounting with 1%, profitability goes up 11.3% for the average company.
Wow.
Right? Now, the specific challenge here is, have you ever failed to change anything 1%? Probably
Which everyone
not.
should be doing anyway in business. You always should
Yes,
be pivoting and making small little changes. But
that's right.
interesting. I don't think people think about changing the price, at least increasing the price, unless they have massive increases in cost. But that really should be something that everyone, whether you're a small business or you're, a publicly traded company, everybody should be concentrating on price.
Yeah, best practice is to increase price 3% or so, either every 6 months or every year,
Okay.
And small price changes like that, nobody cares about. No buyer cares about it. But they compound, it doesn't make a big difference the first year, or the first couple of years, but when you've done this for 3 or 4 years, it's a huge
More
difference.
than 10%. That's huge.
Yeah, and that gives companies more resource to for market development, for marketing, for product development or service definitions, even hiring better people, more expensive people.
Right, exactly. Sometimes you pay for what you get.
Yes,
So, yes, absolutely.
You get what you pay for was that's a rule that was actually defined by a guy in the early 1900s called Thorsten Veblen.
Okay.
And he was one of the leading intellectuals at the time. And he started with, he's really the start of this behavioral economics. And what he did was that he found that he found that you get what you pay for, and if the price is too low, people won't buy it, right? And he did so in office supplies. So it was B2B, and honestly, I don't know what kind of office supplies
I
they
was
had at
like,
that
back in the
time,
1700s. Interesting.
you know. But I guess it must have been sort of
Well, pens and ink, like
yeah, exactly,
the
pens
fountain
and
pen,
inks,
whatever they're
and
called. Yes.
yeah, and ledger books and stuff like that, you
Right.
know. But he called it. Yeah, I can't remember what he actually called the rule, but it really means you get what you pay for.
Right.
You know, I think it was something about business balance.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
the golden rule of business balance or something like that.
Okay. So tell me what you have seen as the biggest mistakes out there as
Well,
far
I
as
think the
pricing,
one big,
besides not putting it as a centerpiece of your
yeah.
business strategy.
Well, first of all, we talked about this, why pricing is so important to revenue. 86% of American CEOs believe that it is sales volume that drives profit, not
Mm,
price, right?
mhm, mhm.
And we just established that sales volume has the lowest impact on profits, right? So
Wow.
the biggest, there are three big mistakes. There are others, but these are the three biggest. The first one is to use your cost as a base for your price.
Mm,
Now, obviously, pricing above your cost is important. Otherwise,
right.
or if you decide to price below your cost, it should be done, you know, as a loss leader, and there should be reasons for it. But different industries have different sort of rules of thumb for cost-based pricing. Many old school manufacturing industries, they take their cost and then they add a 35% margin or a 50% margin. Retailers typically double their cost.
Mhm.
High-tech companies are typically 5 times the cost or 10 times their cost, and so forth. The problem here is that none of this have anything to do with the value you deliver,
That's
right?
right.
And
Absolutely.
and and there's another thing that very few people think about when it comes to cost-based pricing. And again, let me illustrate this with an example. Let's say your cost happened to be $50,
Okay.
and the rule of thumb in your industry is to double that, so your price is going to be 100. Then also consider that you managed to lower your cost from 50 to 40. That means that your price is going to be 80.
Mm.
So what you've just done, you still have the same margin, 100%, right? Or 50% margin, 100% uplift. But your dollar have gone down from 50 to 40. Your dollar profit have gone down from 50 to 40, right? And people do a lot of work trying to lower that cost
Mhm.
just to
Oh,
shoot
they do.
themselves in the
Or
foot.
they're always, I think a lot of times the first thought is, let me just make this a little less expensive
Mm-hmm. That's right. Now,
rather than
the
focusing.
second mistake is to price to competition. And and I I wrote an article in Forbes about pricing and new innovative companies recently, and for that I interviewed about 24 CEOs, and I asked them, how did you approach pricing for your new innovative product? And they all said the same thing: we looked at competition.
Mm,
Okay, or alternatives, right? And we try to be in the same area. Now, the problem here is that even if your competition have prices online, right, which they sometimes do, you don't know as the seller what deals they're making,
right.
what specials they're making, how much they're discounting. You don't know if prices on their website change 8 times a day. You don't know if the website is geotagged, so if you come in from another area, there's going to be different prices. You don't know if if you go to the website and then you click out and click back, you're going to see a different price. So even if prices are online, you don't know what the competition is selling at.
Yeah,
Right?
you definitely don't know what the competition is selling at.
Uh,
And I would say so I'm a sales expert. I've sold
mhm,
close to $1 billion personally myself. And
mhm.
I can tell you from experience, it's easier to be the highest price to sell something as the highest price leader
Yep.
than it is to be either the same price or a lower price.
Yes,
There
absolutely.
is, yeah, there's just a concept of value. It's people take your phone calls.
Yeah.
They see you when you ask for an appointment. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just easier.
The other issue with this, and I speak to some people, almost always deal with the CEO of the company, and sometimes I hear that, oh, we price to market. They have no idea what the market is buying. You
Mhm.
know, they send out their salespeople, and with the instructions of take the best price you can. Then I can guarantee that that is a low price, because most salespeople believe that low price is the way to do it. But also, once you price to competition, it's the first step into the commoditization death spiral, because then suddenly you start marketing like competition, and
Right.
you start having the same product features and competition, and so forth. And again, let me illustrate this a little bit with a story. We worked with a company who they're in the home theater field, and salespeople convinced they have a fairly high priced. This was a receiver of some kind. There was a fairly high priced device, and salespeople convinced the company's CEO that the price for this product that was 3,600 or so should go down to 2,800.
Wow, that's significant.
And so they did, and they lost like 50% of their sales volume. And
Wow.
and uh, with that low price, suddenly they didn't have they tried to increase price again. It didn't work because they set a reference. They had to develop a new version of that product to get back to the 3,600. That took them a year, and it almost killed the company.
Mm.
Right. So and salespeople hear this all the time, that you're too expensive and your competition is better, and it's lies.
If somebody says that to you, you have not done your job.
As a salesperson,
As a
absolutely.
salesperson, you have not done your job.
Yep,
And
absolutely. You have
I
not delivered the
selling
value.
exactly, and selling on being the lowest price is like this downward spiral.
Yes,
Because if
exactly.
you're the lowest price, okay, they'll buy from you now because maybe you're the lowest price. But the next time they need to purchase from you, they're going to again look for a lower price rather than going, okay, who do I have that really great relationship and
Mhm.
provides all the value and everything, and in turn, because of the value, lowers my costs in some
Yeah.
shape or form.
The and a story here which I think is worthwhile. Another client of ours, they have a SaaS product, so they sell it B2B, and we did that measurement that I mentioned. What the willingness to pay for their unique product would be, and we said you can quadruple your price. So they didn't do it overnight. They inched it up over 9 months, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but then, as I spoke to the CEO, he said, and I'm paraphrasing his words, and he said, "We got rid of the bottom feeders, right?"
That's
Meaning the
right.
price sensitive customers. So
Right.
he said, our sales volume is up 25%, and this is at 4 times prices. And he said, our customer support cost is down 80%.
Mhm.
And we got a new professional level of customers.
Yes,
you know
absolutely.
and the third mistake is, of course, guessing, gut feel, whatever you want to call it. And again, let me illustrate it with a story. Another SaaS company, the CEO told me, we didn't work for them because he said he basically told me that my gut feel is better than your science. And he said, and I decided that we should price ourselves at $165 a month per user.
Okay.
And then he continued, but I don't know if that's the right price. Maybe it should have been 99. Maybe it should have been 250.
Sounds like they really needed you.
Yeah, 165 just felt right. It felt the right price.
Okay.
They're still in business, but they're still a very small company.
Right. Yeah. I think if you do, because it sounds like there was indecision and it was just based totally on gut. So that's never a good, I don't think it's a good place to come from with price at all.
No, you need to, you need to be, you need to have that hard data. And many times that actually is I mentioned that I almost exclusively talk to CEOs in my business.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, of course, because the CEO, when he or she wants to implement price changes, there's always pushback from the company, right? No, we're going to increase our price at 1% and we're going to lose all our customers. No. So when we can help that person in that position to convince the rest of the organization that increasing prices is not going to be the death of the company.
I was about ready to ask you, so how do you convince the rest of the company, everywhere from operations to sales, this message that price is going to go up?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
the first is to have hard data.
Right.
And say, look here, this is what the market is actually willing to pay for your product or service. It's not what you hear from potential customers, is not what competition price at, right? So that's the first thing. The other is to say, is to understand, because we take this, we take this measurement and prediction of sales volume and revenue at different prices, and we segment it. So we say, if you focus on this customer segment, and we have the profile of that customer segment, they are willing to pay higher prices than other customer segments. So focus that, because it's going to give you the highest sales volume and revenue.
Right.
And we say, use these value messages, because those value messages are going to support higher prices than other value messages. And the same with, for marketing, use these channels and these marketing messages. And for product development, focus on these product features and functions and benefits, because they support higher prices than other features, functions, and benefits. And often we need to have a pricing strategy that is stratified in some way, based on some variable that makes sense for the buyer, right? As to minimize friction and lead to higher sales volume and revenue.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Because I mean, the last thing you want is friction with your customers.
Yes.
You don't want that pushback from the customers in any shape or form.
Yep.
But I have to tell you, I could talk to you like all day.
I can talk to you all day too.
So you have given so much really amazing information.
Thank you.
Is there anything new? I know you have this book. Did it just come out?
Yeah, the Kindle version came out in the during the summer, and the hard copy came out just before Christmas.
Okay, fantastic.
So and like you said in the beginning, it's called The Price Whisper: A Holistic Approach to Pricing Power.
It sounds like a book that everybody should be reading.
Yeah, it's a book everybody should be reading. And let me show, this is how it looks like. I of course have to have a copy for myself, right?
Of course, of course. Did you sign your own copy as well?
No, I didn't.
But
But it's I started. I've been writing so many articles and blog posts and stuff like that, and I said, let's just take all of those and put glue on top of them, and I have a book.
and put
No,
something
it
that's
didn't work like
comprehensive.
that. I had to rewrite the thing.
No, I know. It never works that way. It
Yeah,
definitely
but
doesn't.
it's distributed. It's on Amazon at the moment. But it's distributed by Simon and Schuster, so it's going to be in every bookstore in America.
Bookstore out there. Yes, absolutely. Well, congratulations to you
Thank
on
you
that.
so much.
Yes. And Paris, where can people find you?
The best way is really just do a Google search for the Price Whisperer.
Okay.
I got a weird last name that makes
Well, I'm going to
perfect sense.
spell it out for everybody so that they can find you. So,
Okay,
first name is Per, but it's spelled P-E-R, and last name is Sjorfors.
that's correct. But
So, and do you have a website? Its website is Pairs
no, it's
Sjorfors.com?
you can find me on thepricewhisperer.me
Okay.
or showforce.com.
Okay. Fantastic.
So
Well, thank you so much for being a guest. I'd love to have you back and talk more about
yeah.
pricing because it's funny because I get questions about pricing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do so much in sales and I work with corporations and entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always about, where should our price be? I don't, or
Yeah.
my price is too high, it's too low, it's too whatever, so I'd love to have you back
Oh,
and
I'd
talk
love to be on
more.
the show again. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much. And for everyone that is listening to this show, the Professional Rule Breaker podcast, please share it with everyone that you know that has a need. And I bet every single business person out there could really listen to this podcast. And if you like the podcast, please give us a 5-star review. And again, thank you, Per. It
Well,
was
thank you,
really a
Kathy,
delight.
for having me, and I hope this was useful for the audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks.